and happy Wisdom Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's your girl, Milagros here. And during the month of September, we have been talking about the importance of going back to the basics. And every week thus far, I've been giving you a couple of basic tips that you can implement into your life so that you can find that your days are more fulfilling, so you can find your relationships are more fulfilling, so you can find your work is more fulfilling. You see where I'm going? So I want to say this. I received an email last week where the woman said, I really appreciate the videos about going back to the basics, but can you give me something deeper, something more in depth? No, not right now. And I told her this in the email, and I told her I was going to be sharing this on the video. Not right now, because it is really, really important that we take the time and are intentional about revisiting the absolute basics. We have a tendency to think that we learned it one time or we read it one time and like, oh, I know that, I'm going to move on. Yeah, you might know it, but then the question is, are you truly putting it into practice? Because if you're not, then what's the point, right? People say, oh yeah, I practice gratitude all the time. And I say, oh, you do? Okay, tell me 10 things that you're grateful for. Go. And they're like, well, if you're practicing gratitude all the time, these things should be flowing. You should be able to shoot off 20 things, no problem, easy breezy, that come to mind, little things, big things that are things that you're grateful for, things that you appreciate, things that make your life easier. So I want to be clear that just because you know it doesn't necessarily mean that you're practicing it. And the goal here is the resolution rather, is to practice it. Because goals, we achieve once, we cross it off the list. I did that. Resolutions are something that we resolve to continue to do day in and day out. At the beginning of the year, people make a goal, or rather they think it's a resolution, but it's a goal, and they say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Okay, that's a great goal, but the resolution should be to make healthy choices when it comes to my food and make sure that I'm scheduling time intentionally to get my butt moving on a consistent basis, because that's the stuff that's going to lead to results. So when you're looking for ways to make your life more fulfilling, ways to be happier, ways to be more satisfied in your day-to-day living, always go back to the basics. You cannot go wrong. I teach dance classes, and I find that sometimes my dancers, even my greatest dancers, the moves start to slip and they look messy and sloppy. And when I notice that, I'll say, okay, stop, everybody stop. We're going to go back to the basics, and we go right back to the basic work that develops the body, develops the muscles, develops the centering, the structure, the ability to move in a certain way, right? It's no different when we're talking about spiritual growth, when we're talking about personal growth, when we're talking about relationship growth. It is essential that we pause when we notice that things are getting kind of funky, and we take responsibility and go back to the basics. What do I have to do to recenter myself? What do I have to do to give myself that structure again? And then the basics really are just being intentional about how we move through our day and through our spaces. What am I bringing into this space? What am I contributing to this space? If I'm just kind of huffing and puffing through life, I have to own that, regardless of the consequence, the circumstances or the conditions or even the people around me. I have to own the energy that I'm bringing into the spaces. And if I'm too funky to bring positive energy, then I need to not be around people, right? I need to recenter myself, and I need to make sure that I'm getting myself to a healthier place. So that's one thing. Another thing is legitimately practicing gratitude on a regular basis, either writing it out, doing it with a family member or a friend, or even creating your own little notice on your phone that goes off, and the notice is an alarm or something, and it says, quick, 10 things you're grateful for. And then you can, if you're at work, chances are you're going to go, I'm grateful for such and such coworker. She's funny. I'm grateful for the fact that they provide us with water. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful that I get a paycheck. I'm grateful that that paycheck feeds my family. I'm grateful for blah, blah, blah. And then you allow yourself to really reside in a place of gratitude, because when we are able to increase our appreciation, we're able to increase our being present, which is part of how we feel more fulfilled in our day-to-day lives. Another thing that's back to the basics is drink water, get moving, sleep well, right? People underestimate the power of these things, and it really does create mind, body, spirit changes when you are fueling your body accordingly, moving your body accordingly, and then resting your body accordingly. That's a really big deal. That's important. carving out time for things that you enjoy doing and things that make you feel more centered. For some people, it might be reading. For some people, it might be meditating, yoga, going for a walk in nature, whatever it is, being intentional about carving out that time. Back to the basics. And then the one thing that I always recommend that everybody does is their affirmations. If you don't have a list of affirmations, at the end of this video, I'll post a video about the importance of affirmations and why it's so important that we say kind things to ourselves. Again, it is no one else's responsibility to build us up. It is ours. So we want to make sure that we're using our thoughts, our words, and then our actions to live accordingly. And so when you do your affirmations on a regular and consistent basis, i.e. every morning, every night, every time you're in the car, right? You don't have to do it that many times, but these are just some examples of when you could do it. You're constantly depending on yourself to build yourself up, to remind yourself of who you are and what you're capable of. And then you're able to bring that positive energy into these spaces. So all I have for you is this. If you haven't seen this month's videos, most of them are pretty short. There's only 3 other videos. They talk about little tools and techniques that you can use to get you back to the basics. It is so important that we get back to the basics and remind ourselves who we are and whose we are so we can stay centered and structured in how we want to live our life. And when I say structured, let me be clear. I'm not talking about not being spontaneous and not having fun, because anybody who knows me knows that I insert fun just about everywhere I go, right? So as much as it's appropriate and possible, I insert fun. That being said, we want to make sure that we are creating a structure for our lives, right? Making sure that I'm taking care of myself. I'm operating from that place of love and gratitude so that I can continue to give from that place of love and gratitude, which then makes me feel more fulfilled, which then it becomes this wonderful cycle, right? And then the more I feel fulfilled, the more I want to give. And the more that I want to give, the more people appreciate. And the more that they appreciate, the more I appreciate. And then there's love and gratitude and and it's fantastic. Because the reality is that our lives, we do not become happy by the stuff that we have, or by the accomplishments that we achieve, or even by the relationships necessarily that are in our lives. These things can absolutely contribute to our happiness, but I know people who have amazing marriages and fantastic jobs and homes and stuff, and they're miserable because they are looking for that source of happiness outside of themselves. And then they come to me and become a coaching client. And when they do, I bring them always right back to the basics. And it's so crazy, and by crazy I mean interesting, amazing, and fun, when they come back to me after putting these things into practice for a couple of weeks. Usually, it's like every 2 weeks or once a month. And they come back and they say, I feel so good. My life is so good. I have so much good in my life. There it is. And it was simple. I just had to remind you to get yourself back to the basics. That's it. To remind you to center yourself, to create a structure in your life where you're fueling yourself so you can give from your overflow and then living a happier, funner, more fulfilled life. So that's what I have for you. Make sure that you get your butt back to the basics. Back to the basics. What? Back to the basics. What? That's like, that could be a remix. Anyways, that's all I have for you. I hope you have a great rest of your week and a fantastic super sparkly weekend. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you know someone who can benefit from it, please share it, because sharing is caring. And if you haven't already, what you waiting for? Subscribe. And get on over to my website and sign up for my mailing list, because the Super Sparkly Everything conference is coming up the first weekend of November, and as I'm ironing out the details, anybody who's on my mailing list is gonna get a coupon for the ticket, so you get to save money, okay? So yeah, that's it. Love you. Nothing you can do about it. See you next week. Bye.